Hi folks, and welcome back to Broadside Gaming with me, Zug. So we've got another Zealot build, so please don't destroy that. And what we're doing is more Zealot stuff, so let's jump in and take a look. So we are using the Relic Blade. Modifiers are as such: damage, finesse, heat management, and power output. And mobility is the dump, because mobility is crap. Perk-wise, we're going with Carapace Unyielding, because that's just what works best with the Relic Blade, at least in my humble opinion. And blessings, we're going for Cranial Grounding and Rampage. As I've said in the other videos, you can change these blessings for whatever the hell you want. They are not contingent on the build working. You can basically pick whatever the hell you like. I just like Rampage and Cranial Grounding, but you can change Rampage out for, say, Overload, or maybe, I don't know, Heat Transfer, or whatever the hell you like, basically. It's not going to make or break the build. This is just how I like to play, and I find it works the best for my playstyle. In any guide you watch in any game, yes, the guide may show you good ways of doing things, but if you can't gel with the playstyle, the guide is not going to be good for you. So I always advocate for editing them as you see fit. Next up, we have the secondary weapon, which is going to be the Flamer for us, but you can also change this out for, I don't know, whatever the hell you want. Like I keep saying, you could also use the bolt gun. That works just fine. Otto, please stop destroying my computer. The quick draw stub revolver, whatever. But the Flamer's fun, so that's what we're using it with this build. And for the modifiers, we're going with damage, ammo, burn, and cloud radius, and mobility is the dump. See my feelings above. Perk-wise, we're going with unyielding and crit, but you can again change this from unyielding and crit to maybe unyielding and flak. Flak is always a good option. I just prefer the crit because it does help with some of the back-end stuff of the Flamer. Blessings-wise, we're going with Blaze Away for strength for every 10% of the magazine spent during continuous fire. Thunder. And Penetrating Flames. Direct hits apply 4 stacks of 2.5% brittleness for 5 seconds, stacking it 16 times. And brittleness is just rending that you apply to a target. Rending is applied to you. Brittleness you apply to the target. So that's what brittleness is. Then we've got the curios. We are going for 2 17% toughness with toughness, stamina regen, and damage resistance gunners. Same on the next one, but I've switched out stamina for corruption. If you're not doing Auric or Havoc, you don't really need the corruption resistance. So you can switch the corruption resistance to either more stamina regen or, say, damage resistance snipers, whatever you fancy. I would only take corruption resistance if you are pushing high-level Havocs, because then corruption is actually a problem and that needs to be dealt with. And the last one is a +3 stamina curio. Now, again, this is a point of contention for a lot of people. I feel the build benefits from more stamina, but you do not have to take it if you want to take, say, another toughness curio or a max health curio. So, this is changeable if you want to. Oh my god, totally sit down. Sorry, the kitten's all over me. Yeah, I think it helps, but if you really don't like it, change it. It's not going to destroy the build. Anyway, speaking of build, let's look at the tree. Let's start off over here on the right. Backstabber, plus 25% damage on backstab and flanking hits. This is wildly better than it used to be because it now includes flanking hits. So you're not just having to get behind things. But as everyone knows, rogues do it best from behind. Next up, we have Second Wind, replenish 15% toughness on a successful dodge. You should be dodging a lot. You're a zealot. If you don't know how to, learn to. Disdain, plus 5% damage on your next melee attack for each enemy hit, stacking 5 times. This is just a small stacking. It's kind of like a free inherent head taker, like a much smaller one. Teeny little head taker buff. Then we're going with enemies within, enemies without. 2.5% toughness per second while within 5 meters range of an enemy. It doesn't really need to say range there, it just should say within 5 meters, but anyway. Increased by 1% per enemy, monstrosities count as 5, max stack is 7.5. Purge the unclean. increased damage against infested and unyielding enemies. Then we get melee damage boost, and we're actually taking Blades of Faith with this one. Again, like I've said in every single build I've recorded recently, you can pick whatever the hell you want here. It doesn't change the setup of the tree, and it's as simple as this. Blades of Faith for sniping specials. Immolation Grenade for dealing with hordes and laying down damage on big packs. Stunstorm Grenade, utility. It helps you control the battlefield. It helps you save people, you know. So utility, AoE, single target. Until Death. Fatal damage instead grants you invulnerability for 5 seconds, occurs every 2 minutes. Sustained Assault, plus 4% melee damage for 5 seconds on hitting an enemy with a melee attack, stacking 5 times. Again, just free damage. Going over here to thy Wrath be Swift. Enemy melee attacks cannot stun you. On taking damage, gain 15% movement speed for 2 seconds. Holy Revenant. When Until Death ends, you blah blah blah, you get health back. Only 25% health. Do it with a melee weapon. Against the Odds. For every 2 enemies within 5 meters, gain 2% damage and 10% cleave, stacking 5 times. This is quite big. What's the matter? Sorry, the kitten's just sitting in the hallway crying about something. I mean, I would stop and edit the video, but I don't want to be honest. Sustained Assault, blah, blah, blah. Holy Revenant, Against the Odds. And then Providence. 25% revive speed. In addition, allies you assist, revive, get 10% movement speed and 15% toughness damage reduction for 5 seconds. It's not super, super great. But, I mean, we're down that way and it saves us taking a point from one of these, which we're not grabbing at the moment. Good Balance. A successful dodge grants 25% damage reduction for 2.5 seconds. This is what I keep banging on about dodge being very important. Abolish Blasphemers. 15% damage versus elites. This is just a big chunky bit of damage that, you know, will help you deal with them. Then into Faithful Frenzy, plus 10% melee attack speed. And then we've got the Aura. You can pick whatever the one you want. Toughness damage reduction, corruption, or stamina cost. It is completely up to you. You would have to take another point if you really do want the stamina cost, but the other two you can basically pick and choose whatever the hell you want. A toughness boost, and then we're taking Fury of the Faithful. I know people consider Curios Spiritual Fortitude the big bad meta, but this is just a very fun way of playing it. This is all about speed, this build, so that's what we're doing. And also, I don't like Shroudfield. It feels awkward to use. It doesn't feel as good to use as Stealth did on Carillion. It feels awkward. So we're using Fury of the Faithful. Again, if you really want to, you can pick one of the others. It doesn't really mess with the build too much. It just slows you down. Anyway, Fury of the Faithful, we're taking the cooldown reduction and we're taking the double use, and then into the toughness damage reduction, and then we're into Inexorable Judgement. We're getting a movement speed here, 75% ability cooldown regeneration for 2 seconds after a melee backstab or melee weak spot hit. Goes nicely with backstabber, although this doesn't work on flanking, so it will be backstab or weak spot. But we're mostly going for weak spot hits. With, oh God, I can't speak. Weak spot hits with the sword, so this should be popping quite a lot. Hubris. 15% damage resistance after a weak spot kill. This pairs up very nicely with this. Then into Relentless Fervor, 10% sprint speed and minus 10% sprint cost. Sprinting for 1 second grants slowdown immunity. Now, we could get rid of this point because we are using the Wrath be Swift. So you can't be stunned. They work well together, but if you've got one, you can kind of not take the other one. Riposte, plus 3% melee damage after a successful dodge, stacking 5 times. Again, I'm going to keep banging it home. Dodge is very, very important. I know people who've been playing the Zealot for, I don't know, 3 years now. You don't need to hear this, but you know, this is all inclusive. This is for new and elderly players alike. And we've got Inexorable Judgement itself. Moving grants you momentum, stacks 20 times. When you hit an enemy, spend all of your momentum, gaining 1% melee attack speed, 1% range attack speed, and 1% damage per stack, lasting 6 seconds. And then we've got the tertiary points around the edge. Inebriate Poise, gain 3 stacks of momentum on a successful dodge. Again, dodge, dodge, dodge. And last but not least, Eternal increases the duration of Nocturnal Judgment to 10 seconds. So you get the buff from it for 10 seconds, and you literally build up stacks just by just normally running or sprinting around like an absolute head case. And as you can see, as soon as you hit, you use the stacks. But if you look down at the bottom, so I'm at okay, I'm at 20 now. We'll use them, but even though you've used them, as soon as you start moving again, you start building the stacks up. So you're never without stacks. So, you know, that's a nice little plus. You don't have to worry. Once you have the buff, it doesn't stop stacking. It just gives you that amount of stacks that you had when you initiated the attack. Now, there is a point in here that I would like to try and take, which is punish impiety, which works very, very well with the Claymore, because push follow-up attacks grant 10% melee attack speed. Now, the push follow-up attack with the Claymore is a lovely, lovely weak spot head strike, which is this, and then you get it. So you get 10% attack speed for doing that. And the push block attack is an age-old thing within the Tide games. It was in, you know, the Vermintide 2. Vermintide 2, it was a massive thing to learn, especially with, you know, some of the weapons. For example, Kruber's Mason sword. The old push block attack on that was amazing. You know, did the whole scissor attack in front of you. And it's not massively talked about in Darktide, but it is a very useful thing, especially with some weapons. They have amazing hidden push block attacks that will, say, take normally a wide sweeping weapon and push it into an overhead weak spot attack that does immense damage. So if we can kill a point somewhere, which I hope we should be able to. What point should we kill, folks? I'm literally doing this on the... I've given this no thought. I mean, I like Relentless Fervor. It's a funny talent. Or we get rid of killing an elite special within 5 seconds of using restores 20% ability cooldown. I mean, we could. I don't know if it's a good idea. I'm going to have to mull this one. Maybe in the comments you could let me know what point you would get rid of for it. I mean, 15% damage versus elites to just a flat 10% melee attack speed. Don't know. It's a difficult one. I'd have to test it. But still, that's me getting in the weeds again. There you go. Here is an Inexorable Judgement build for you. And like I've said on every other build, if you do not like the weapon setups I have given you, you can change them. I am just showing you the weapons that I really enjoy playing with. You could use the dueling sword. You could use the crusher. You could use whatever the hell you want. None of these builds are weapon-centric. You can change them and mix them about. It might slightly decrease the output of the build, or it might slightly increase it. But as I said before, if you don't get along with a weapon or a build, it doesn't matter how good people say it is, you're not going to do well with it because you don't like it. So, you know, try things out, change things, test stuff, see what happens. You know, nothing bad's going to happen to you. There you go, folks. Another build and another like 15 minutes of me rambling nonsense. I hope you've enjoyed. If you have, please do like and subscribe. Ring the bell for notifications. It really does help us out. And I shall see you all for the next build. There will be fresh builds for every class in Darktide, so do keep an eye out for them. So until next time, take it easy, and I'll see you later.